exposed tissue clenched in their fists and were dabbing at puffy red eyes, which made me feel a little ashamed. My own face was dry, and it had been since I'd learned of my dad's death. It wasn't that I didn't feel like crying, I just couldn't make the tears fall. I think maybe I was too shocked to do anything except stare blankly at the world around me, which is what I was still doing as the pastor said his final words. A few other people spoke up after he had finished, but I didn't hear a single word any of them said, because I wasn't really listening. What could any of them possibly say about Dad that I didn't already know anyway? I shuffled restlessly where I stood. The cemetery's giant oak trees had been providing us with shade for most of the morning, but now the sun was hovering directly above us, and I had to throw up a hand to shield my eyes from its rays. Apparently, the sun's annoying new position was a cue of some sort, because a minute or so later silence descended over our group. The pastor took a handful of dirt and tossed it across my father's coffin while chanting something about ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And then it was over. Just like that, my dad's life was officially over. The pastor closed the Bible and people turned to their neighbors and shook hands and hugged each other. Then, one by one, they directed their attention to us. I wasted no time ducking out of my mother's one-armed embrace and attempting a beeline toward our SUV. Something about me must have been screaming, "I don't want to talk to anyone," because I managed to escape most of the crowd with only a few discreet head nods and brief embraces. I hadn't quite made it to the safety of our vehicle, though, before I had that inexplicable feeling of being watched. I tilted my head to the left and saw the reason instantly out of the corner of my eye. She would have been hard to miss, since she was staring blatantly in my direction, her gaze resolute and a creepy statue-like air about her. Without thinking, my pace slowed almost to a stop. My hand had already reached for the car door, but now it simply rested on the handle. For a moment, I couldn't help but look back at her, but that quickly got uncomfortable for me, although she seemed unnerved by my returned stare. Seconds later, I admitted defeat in our staring contest and averted my eyes, pulled the car door open, and clambered inside. I slumped down as far into the seat as I could go, far enough that I couldn't see out the windshield. I studied the shadows on the dashboard for a long while before sitting up and chancing a glance in her direction. But by this time the strange girl had already disappeared. My gaze was met instead by what was left of my family just as they reached the car. They didn't say anything as they climbed in. I didn't bother to interrupt the silence. That girl's face followed me home. I'd seen her somewhere before, I was sure of it, and now she hung in my memory like a nagging tune I couldn't name. I knocked my head lightly against the headrest in frustration, and my mother glanced over at me, her lips forming a thin frown. "You okay, Alex?" That was a bit of a loaded question. "I'm fine, Mom. Just thinking about something." She gave me one of her "I know better because I'm your mom" looks, but all she said was, "Okay." The silence settled heavily after that, and lasted throughout the remainder of the trip, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Eventually, the longest car ride of my life came to an end, and we turned left onto our long, twisting gravel driveway. My nose was pressed against the window, causing a tiny cloud of fog to appear on the glass with each breath. Outside, the wind was picking up, and the trees lining our driveway bowed forward, their branches skimming the top of the car. The glass was getting colder despite my warm breaths, as the sun was now completely hidden behind the gray clouds. A thunderstorm, a nasty one from the looks of it, was rolling in quickly, as they had a tendency to do during our North Carolina summers. About time the weather got with the program, I thought. My door was open before the car made it into park. I jumped out and pulled the light jacket I was wearing more tightly around myself, and took the front porch steps at a run without offering so much as an acknowledging glance over my shoulder at either Mom or Laura. My house key was out and ready when I got to the front door, and I hastily shoved it in the lock. I didn't bother to shut the door behind me as I darted off down the hall. As I reached my room, I heard the wind fling the screen door against the brick siding with a loud bang, which I mimicked a second later when I slammed my own door. I walked to the overstuffed couch in the corner of my room and slumped down onto it, promptly burying my face in its cushions. My eyes were closed within seconds. Outside.